Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Growing Up Alien. This has been kind of one of those interviews I've been waiting and excited to bring forward here because many folks have been asking questions about the programs, the mind control, the MK Ultra, the CIA, and the intense infiltration into the ET disclosure community, which has been going on for, well, let's say, decades. Well, the best way I think to get through this is to have a person who's actually been through the entire thing, starting with not realizing they were being mind controlled, thought they were talking to ETs, thought they were part of this ET family, and then realized that these were handlers. Without further ado, and I'm sorry, guys, I have a cold, so that's why you're lucky I'm in the dark, and we'll see how far I can get through this. But yeah, without further ado, I want to welcome Nathan Ciszek again back to our program.
Hi, Andrea. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on again. Um, anyway, I want to drink to what you just said. I need to drink something as white as me. So I'm a short white, by the way.
A short white.
Yeah,
A short one.
I'm really not this pale. I'm actually kind of almost, but the light kind of like reflects off of me.
You're on a ship. Aren't you on a ship right now?
No, I'm in a tomb actually that's kind of crooked.
Oh, you're in a tomb.
Yeah, we had a pole shift back here and it's like shifted, you see. So let me see if I can adjust the axis of the planet here.
Oh,
Uh,
excellent,
that's a
excellent.
little bit better.
A little bit, that's much better.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I may sound a little off. Yeah, I'm
Back to
actually I end up one of those like space colds. So I'm actually on a ship right now. We're right off of Venus, and every time I go
the
up, I get a cold.
Every time you blow your nose, you feel like you're floating away to another planet.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, yeah. So, a lot of this has been pretty wild stuff, but what I want to do is actually just start with the first time you remembered, being told that you are a contactee or wherever you feel is a good introduction to the mind control that you experienced.
Yeah, what happened to me was, and it's difficult to discern whether or not I was having a organic awakening or one that was engineered. And what I feel inside and what I believe is that I was going to wake up no matter what. So they had a dilemma, the handlers. What do you do if you have an asset that's going to wake up? And their answer to that is to co-opt the awakening. So they're going to not just try to shut you down. If they can succeed with that, fine, but they know they're not, because what they do is they look forward in time using AI and they create a predictive, well, they look for predictive or predictable behaviors essentially, and they're mapping out what they're going to do to you by introducing variables. So the AI essentially looks forward in time, introduces hypothetical variables, and then looks at all these different aspects, and wherever the timeline branches or however you want to describe that. So they've already got it mapped out before it happens. So they what they do is they pick the the path of least resistance. In my case, that would likely have been kind of a co-opted awakening. So as I started having psychic experiences, they were already there, and the first clue of this is that they gave me a past life memory, which was a memory of a soul transference.
Okay.
And normally this would seem like it was a MyLab experience. What they did in the beginning is they put it in a white haze, like this white fog inside this room. So initially, when I was a child, because if I remember all the way back to the very beginning, probably my earliest memory, because I can't really pinpoint a point in time where this came to me. I remember being in a white haze, and I remember laying in something and then being sent here and going into a fetus. But I was communicating telepathically. Later in my life, in my 20s or so, early, actually late teens, I started having flashbacks. They were in consecutive order, um, with the order of events that happened in this memory. So the parts that I forgot within the white haze were now clearer, and I was remembering newer, extra aspects of this. The key here for me is that, or the main clue that this was in a memory that they took from me and edited it and put it back in to
Right.
be like implanting a screen memory, is that whenever I looked at them inside this lab that I was in, they had a black box, either square over their mouth or rectangular over their eyes, or their entire face was shaded. Okay, so this was the first clue for me that this was put in me. It wasn't, and but it was a real memory.
Yeah.
And but I didn't have the context of it. So that's the problem. Normally, when you get an organic memory, you get the context of it. It's not just a flash, and it's like, what was that? Where, so all of these things just kind of added up. Immediately, I knew from a young age that I was different because nobody else was talking about this stuff. I never back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s ever heard of anyone talking about pre-birth memories. That really didn't start until social media got going, and it didn't seem to start until I don't think I heard anything about that until after like 2012, where people started to bring up, a pre-birth memory, and that's what I was calling it. But what it really was is I was in a military base in a lab or a military facility,
Yeah.
and I was put in a machine. I was actually given a summary of what my life would be like, and I was protesting it. And because they told me I was going to have a speech impairment and other possible handicaps. So, I was concerned about how I was going to make a living. And with the speech impairment, that was even worse because that kind of limits you. And but I knew I was in for a rough time, and I was basically, and I wouldn't say really protesting, but I was just saying that's just not going to work. And I kept saying it over and over again telepathically until one of them looked at me, and her face was completely shaded out, but I could see long black hair. It was
Yeah.
a female, and I could hear her voice. And this was one of the handlers that I had experience with later in life. It was the first verbal handler that I had was a female. I called her the drill sergeant. So she looked at me directly and said, "You have to take a handicap," in a very authoritarian way. And then I just remember being, asked what race I wanted to be. It was white and black were the terms. They didn't go into African American or Caucasian or anything like that. And I remember just saying, I'd rather be white due to the racial tension. And I made a joke and I said, besides, I like white skin anyway, because referring to it as kind of like a skin suit. And of course, all those things. Now, what you have to understand here is the reason why they didn't give me the context of it, and the reason why it was so limited in scope is because they were going to plug it in later when they did establish contact.
Okay.
This was supposed to be an engineered lifetime for therapeutic purposes. So, but it really is an engineered lifetime, but it's not at all for therapeutic purposes. It's just basically to put me on the shelf and contain me and control me so
Right.
that they can use my alters and programs
Right.
for whatever research they were going to use me for.
Right.
So this was a way of giving me a false identity overlay.
Right.
And false identity overlays, the problem with them is that when you're trying to break free from the mind control and you've got a false identity overlay that you're identifying with, say they tell you that, and you could be an ET, but if they tell you you're some other ET, and one of the more popular ones that they'll lay on people is the Anunnaki identity.
Yes.
There's so many people that identify with being in the Anunnaki, not just being in the Anunnaki in general, but being in the Anunnaki main group that people read about in the Sumerian text. There's thousands of Enkis. I don't even know. I think Nanas. There's thousands of them. They're all over the place. There's so many people that are in these programs that are contactees, or they think they are. They're often my labs. They're
Right.
being told these things. And anytime you get contact and it's negative, it's definitely military involved. So they're going to be using these tactics. The false identity overlay is one of the most difficult things to overcome because they literally build it over time. So you're literally groomed into this identity. And over time, it becomes you. It becomes your reality. It's everything that you think. It's like, okay, I'm going to go home one day to another planet. Can't wait to get out of here. You become suicidal because of that. And that's another thing. They need to get consent to kill you. Because if they have the consent and you want to go, then they can take you at any time. So they're engineering consent. And the further you get away from your original self, and not just your original self, but your oversoul, the concept of your higher self or oversoul, that's the greater being that you are. And you're just a piece of it here, a fragment of it. Further they take you away from that, the more of the overlay they can put into you and the less of you you become. So any abilities that you have now become kind of compartmentalized and locked away much more effectively. It's not just done by implants. Etheric implants can be removed through intention. And that's what I found. And if they're rerouting your attention into something that's false and you're aspiring to be a certain individual that you never were, you're completely disarming yourself from all of your basic defenses to get yourself out of the control system that you're in, and that's the programming.
Yeah.
And society backs all of this up because our entire social system, the entire human experience is based in trauma-based mind control. It
Yeah.
begins with amnesia and then the application of trauma, which often happens right out of the womb. Of course, the whole birth process is harsh,
Yeah.
but getting past that, you get traumatized as a child. You could have deadbeat parents that are terrible to you. Kids pick on you. Adults are mean to you. You get into relationships, addictions, all of these things, and they're exacerbating it. They're making you go through this stuff. And if you have trauma, it's going to bleed through. So you have the application of trauma and amnesia. And the third component is programming. And we get that all the time when we turn on the television, when we read, when we do whatever we're getting, all these sensory inputs, most of it is programming. And it's programming to keep us in a very limited scope of reality.
Right.
So they're not questioning. So we're not questioning anything. But when you're in these programs, it's much more direct and intentional. So they do things like thought injections. When I was a kid, for example, I would be petting a cat. And this happened later in life too. And it didn't stop until I was able to break the connection. But I could be petting a cat or a dog, and all of a sudden there'd be a thought of doing something harmful with my cat or my dog. Something that was completely out of character.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
I would question, like, why would I think that? And I began to think that there was something wrong with me.
Right.
And then I would have social interactions with people or just interactions where I would just make eye contact or look at someone. And then suddenly there would be this inner voice that sounded like mine that would say, she's ugly. Look at that whore. Look at this or look at that. Just something derogatory about
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what gender it was. There was just, and it was like the type of thing that, like a schoolyard kid that threatened other children would say. It was always childish, immature, just low level garbage that would just be pumped in.
Yeah.
And this is all an attempt to get you to become a negative person.
Right. Right.
And that's where the trauma comes in too, because the more trauma you go through, the harder it is to be a positive minded, loving person who's open to other people, and you wall yourself off. So they're trying to isolate you, and they're trying to mold you into someone you're not.
Right.
And that's the goal here, because once they've molded you into something you're not, they've got control of what you've become. And that's just like with alters, it's the same process, but we're the original self. We're the ones in society that they've been abducting and putting in these programs. So we're the tool that they use to control the rest of ourself that's here. All of these alters basically are very much connected to us, and they can use the alters to influence us as well. So another thing that happened to me is they altered my sexual orientation for a period of time. It shifted. My personality shifted. They did all of these things to wreck my life and to make it harder and confuse me and to make me feel that I didn't fit in. And the more that they pull you away from society
Yeah.
and other people, the more isolated, the more hopeless you feel. And it's just not healthy. And they want to keep you in a state like that.
Yeah.
Now, the contrast to that is the people that begin to have these fantastic experiences where
Right.
it's love and light and everything's great.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's just like it's the same grooming process, but it goes in a different direction. You have a suppression protocol that I was under, but because I had an irresistible desire to help people and expose these things, they use that against me, which I'll get to in a moment. But for the other side of this, and I'm not talking about positive contact, I'm talking about negative extraterrestrial or self-serving negative extraterrestrial, military-oriented contact. Um, they use people as social implants, or in this case, in the modern age, social media influencers. In the past, these people wrote books, they channeled beings, and they channeled information that never came true. And
Right.
ultimately, because of that personality overlay, the false personality overlay, these people instead, when their information would be proven false over time, they would simply just move on to the next thing and keep doing it because their whole personality, their whole sense of self is tied now into this.
Yeah.
So they'll lie to themselves just like I did. This is one of the telltale signs. And when you get out of this and you look back at it, what you realize is that you knew it all along inside you, but you just couldn't bring yourself to do it. It just didn't feel right, but you couldn't bring yourself to break away.
Right.
And it's a trap that people fall into. And if they're using you to, if they're being nice to you
Yep.
and putting on this facade, and they're using you to deceive other people, which is what
Right.
social implants are for. They may be using you to create a cult. They may be using you just to spread disinformation. And disinformation is generally 80% truth, 20% bad information. So that keeps that, because it'll resonate with you, but it'll throw you just enough off course to satisfy their agenda.
Right.
And so when you get tied into this and you're having these positive experiences and you become a social media superstar, because at this point you have to understand it isn't just the ETs of the military, it's big tech, it's one big AI consortium that's operating here. They've built this up over the last 20 plus years with the internet. They can funnel people into different places very easily now. It's seamless. So the algorithms will point people directly to the people that they're using as these social implants to put out this information. The people putting out truth can't get a break. They can't get anyone to watch their channel. No one can find it. The
Right.
only way they can gain any acceptance or notoriety is they have to find a way in and find a podcast that's kind of in between being kind of unknown and then just small, and then try to branch out from there. And these are the people that are suppressed. So they're suppressed just like you. So you have to network with those people. And getting into that, it takes time, and it takes work and effort. And I had to gain people's trust and really show them who I am in order to be able to do that.
Well,
Um,
I think that's key though, gaining people's trust and meeting with people and talking to people. My biggest red flag with a lot of these individuals is their inability to interact with regular people, so they don't answer questions from regular people. They seem to be part of a narrative. They only work with a clique. It's a very closed group that they're involved with. They don't really have any massive outreach where people can start to, of course, well, the biggest thing is no one's actually questioning everybody. There's
yeah,
no
that's
evidence based, and it's just somebody that begins to tell some off the wall. And this is the thing that blows my mind is the lack of analytical process, prefrontal cortex capacity. And it makes you wonder, like, how can these I almost wonder too if the programs haven't inserted some kind of like trigger or keywords to get people to actually believe a lot of this stuff. Because what I've noticed is these characters will always have books around, they'll have some complicated thing, courses they sell. And it just doesn't, to me, that just feels so inauthentic. There's something off there. Like it's like they're trying to create a suspension of belief and
right,
also a sense of it's a cult basically. And I can't imagine why people follow these. And I do know why. I mean, it sucks here, and they want to find some. They've moved away from religion, so they've moved into these religions. These are religions, but it's mind-numbing that and I think this is part of the engineering is to see just how far they can get large numbers of the population to hook onto new cults basically and kind of erase a sense well, it's part of what you're saying there because these people are erasing who they are as a person because now they're superimposing whatever this person and their agenda philosophy new age thing find yourself ascension. These people have, I mean, they have these sophisticated courses, they have books, they go on talks, they, blah, blah, blah. But they're always really caricature-y. You can't really approach them one-on-one. And I think that's partially kind of what you were talking about there, where it's like they're always creating another overlay for the populace.
right. So, but yeah, well, you touched on a couple of things that are relevant here that need to be talked about. One is the marketing aspects of this, because if you watch the news, you watch the corporate media, you're going to get very polished speakers. You're going to get people that smile with their mouth and not with their eyes.
Yeah, right,
You
right,
get inauthentic people. You're going to get false information. So we're conditioned like that over time from childhood.
right.
And everyone that we see on the television that we're supposed to trust. These are the authoritative figures that have the information for us. Because the news really is just the government spoon feeding you information. So
Right.
they have to put a handsome or beautiful face on it, a bright white smile. It's all smoke and mirrors. So we're used to that. And then these people are conditioned, they're groomed. And I remember one particular influencer is very popular. She's a woman, and she said one time, this is back when I was listening to this stuff and trying, because when I came into the community, I did a lot of research and I gradually got myself in and I started watching other people. And I'm thinking, wow, they're able to do all these things. And here I was having my psychic abilities turned on and turned off. And I
Yeah.
knew somebody was doing it. So I would have these experiences and then they would cut me right off. And I'm thinking to myself, either somebody's trying to get my attention or what, but I knew somebody was out there doing this. Someone was manipulating me. And if they could turn me on and off, then who were they? Were they spiritual? Were they extraterrestrial? Were they demonic or angelic? Whatever they were, they certainly weren't God. And I struggled to make sense of this. So I was looking at these influencers, and that's what happens a lot. And this is where the danger comes in. I've got a phone call just for a second. I'm just going to have to block that out. I hate these calls,
Oh, I know what
but
you're talking about.
very distracting. I can handle your chicken. That's fine. I
Oh,
love that. I can't handle this. If Jesse was making that noise from my phone, I'd be all right.
I mean, your fault. Yeah.
Yeah. So what it is it's marketing, and I'm just going to go to the catchphrases. There's a lot of catchphrases. For you can watch the news, and they'll have a certain phrase, and then you can go to another state and watch the 6 p.m. news. It's the same phrase,
Same
and
for
it's reverberated because it's a top-down systematic system information. So usually Reuters will put out talking points that are filtered through their CIA operatives,
right.
and then it goes through the system. So the talking points are very uniform. And we didn't realize this until the internet came about, and this is before the AI censorship was happening because they've scrubbed all the stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You can't even find videos; they're very hard to find these days. And sometimes you do nothing like it used to be because people used to do compilations of talking points from different because you could watch the news on the internet in different states, so you could record those clips and put them together, and then that's when we started to realize, hey, everybody's saying the same thing about the same situation on the news. Well, in the new age community, we have lots of key phrases: high vibrational frequency, activation,
Yes.
vibration. There's all these different terms, and the people that are the worst at this and the ones that are really marketing themselves just spit these terms out rapidly. It's just
Oh, yeah.
it's so incorporated into their language. It's all you hear. Go ahead.
Well, that's what you and then I call it pseudoscience. So what I've been noticing recently now is these operatives are creating these very complicated academic style presentations. And they'll pull in like some real physics and some real science, but
Mhm.
they'll weave that into a forced thesis that actually has zero evidence. And it'll sound very pseudo-scientific. But what they're doing is offering solutions to people. So they're never offering the one thing they never offer, and every single person I've ever talked to, or they'll never talk to because they don't talk to you. You got to pay them. But any of these people who are doing this philosophy, new age stuff, right? They'll always start it off with, oh, you can't trust the government. You can't trust history. You can't trust this. You can't trust that, which is true. But then they'll come in and offer this complex, here is the history of the world. Like, wait. Take my 3 courses, read my books. I'm going to read, I'm a Anunnaki prince or whatever they are. I'm Enki's daughter or something. They'll come up with some kind of, I was walking to the store and oh, angels came. They'll have this, you know who they were. The angels were the handlers. But they never allow any wiggle room for the people that are, it is not, I guess I call it a pseudo academic, because there's never any defense. They don't have to defend their dissertation. They just come in, they know that, and this again, I don't think it's them, I think it's handlers. So they'll come on the scene out of nowhere and they'll have this really complicated, like, discourse on the history of Earth, let's say. And they'll tap into the pain points of the, this is it's classic commercial process. They'll tap into the pain points of the audience. Oh, I'm disaffected. Oh, I want to know the truth. What's the truth? Who's telling the truth? I'm telling the truth, you know? And it's like, what the and people just fall for this shit. And it's just like, wow.
Yeah, the female contactee that I was referring to, I don't think I finished my point because I got kind of sidetracked with a phone call coming
Oh,
in.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that annoying because yeah, I got bill collectors. I'm not back to work yet, so it's just like, God, here it
Good
is.
luck to them. Good.
$30 here, $30 there for a blood test, stuff like that. Things I bought and financed, and then all of a sudden I wasn't back to work on time, so I can't pay the bill on time. There's a whole separate subject. We're all going through stuff like that
Well,
these
the
days.
government has to pay off its debt and it doesn't seem to be doing anything there. So,
Well, you can't pay off debt at 1% interest to the private Federal Reserve because that 1% doesn't exist. So we have an accumulating unpayable debt, and we're always in debt. And then it's a slave system. And what happens when you owe too much? They take your assets.
of course,
So
yeah.
they're taking your food or water, and our quality of life is being just drained out of us. But anyway, separate subject.
Separate subject. Yeah.
She said what she said one time, and this is very telling. She said, "I was told by my ET contacts to not look at other people's information. Don't get into politics. Don't get into history. Just go by what they say."
Right. Right.
And that's, and of course, when you wall yourself off and you don't have the discourse with people, you're not willing to talk to somebody unless you're getting paid.
Ah, right. Right. Right.
That's the other problem because they're not having that well-rounded experience. They're not getting the feedback. A lot of times you'll see these influencers will have a lot of very short comments. And, when we do shows, Andrea, like if I go on Rob's channel, there's maybe two or three comments. If we go on Rumble, it's rare to get any, but sometimes it's usually less than 5 to 10. YouTube usually has more. Your channel's bigger than Rob's. And so we had, I think last time I was here, I counted 27 comments.
All right.
And so I like coming on your channel because it's bigger because at least a couple more people will say things. And then,
Well, the
sometimes,
point is, I mean, my channel, the purpose of my channel is to get people to think.
yeah, but I'm doing stuff the
Yeah.
same thing. And I think they're throttling, they're taking these away because I have a researcher friend
Uh,
who historically all of his videos have had no comments, every damn one of them. And one day I did a
yeah.
test. I left a comment and then I signed out and I couldn't see it anymore until I signed in. So that told me that nobody could see my comment but me. So there might have been 50 people or 100 people
Oh,
commented.
oh,
They're
yeah.
like, "Where's everybody else?" I'm just seeing mine, and then they don't even realize that nobody else can see them.
Right. Well, but the thing is, and we all know that all whatever you're seeing on these social media is bullshit. And numbers are bullshit and comments are bullshit because they're only putting in maybe a few taking everybody knows that. But the thing is, let's say on your friend's channel, you know, 3,000 people watched it. So it doesn't matter if they get a chance to comment. He or she reached 3,000 people.
Right, it's likely higher than that. The point I
Right.
was making was they have bots to do this. So a lot of these channels, and it's very easy to see it because it'll be that's awesome, that's great, and you have the little hands, the prayer hand symbol and the hearts and all this, and it'll be like smiley faces and things. It's very repetitious. It's
Yeah.
very like a one-line thing, and you'll see a lot of them. You'll see far more comments than you would expect because
Well,
of the amount.
I actually started looking at that. It didn't occur to me until, wait a minute. So if I go on somebody else's channel, if I'm interviewed by somebody else, somebody with large numbers, not a small channel, but if I go on those channels, like I'm one of the only guests on there where like you'll see this, she's crazy. My grandmother had that, then we put her away. She's a nut. That lady's crazy. That lady's crazy. It'll be like comment after comment about how crazy I am. But then
Yeah,
they'll
well,
bring on somebody else like Danny Henderson. She's awesome. I love her. I love her. I love her. And it's like, wait, like, wait. And I started scrolling through. different people that came on. And some of these people they'd have on the show that were total batshit crazy. I mean, you just look at the person, they're like Google-eyed, hair is like this. Oh, I talk to Arcturians. Oh my God. And it's like, this person's a fucking, should be institutionalized, right? But all the comments will be like, oh, that guy was awesome. That guy was brilliant. Like, have him back. It's like, what? Like, the guy's mentally ill. It's like, so it's like, it was wild to see like, so that's, that it's the bots.
And people follow groupthink. So, in other words, you're standing in a corner and you're waiting for the light to turn. It says the walk sign, and somebody, the first person, just crosses the street. Typically, everyone in that little group waiting is going to walk, and you'll have one or two people that kind of stay back, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I'll go." And it's okay. And when you see those comments, it gives them false credibility because the people who aren't very astute in these subjects are going to look at that and say, "There's a lot of people that think that this person's great and this is great
Yeah,
information,
right. Well, that's yeah.
and look at the support they have, look at their audience, and of course, you're not going to find the good information. You're going to be funneled right into that, and
It's
all you have to
yes.
do is do a search, just do a general search for, and you'll see all of these influencers. They're carbon copies of one another. And another thing too, that's another telltale sign of this, is that when a certain talking point hits the internet, such as the Lions Gate portal or something,
Oh yeah.
everybody, all of these people, all
Yep.
are all talking about it at the same time, and
Yep.
it's just like a cycle. And it's kind of like it kind of goes back to when you're shopping in department stores. They have the Halloween stuff comes out and the Christmas stuff comes out, and then it's Easter, and then it's summer stuff, and then it's the fall stuff, and then it's back, and it's just a cycle. So it's just like that. It's kind of like they're drawing from the consumer programming, the consumption
It's
program.
absolutely. It's yeah. You mean it's because that's neurologically spot on. It's they know how humans behave. You're a herd animal. And nobody wants to be the bad guy either. So like everybody wants to associate with the cool club. Nobody wants to associate with the salon de refusé. So it's like people, even though you're in your own home, it's like, oh, everybody likes this person, so I'm gonna like this person too. But whatever they choose, none of it is through analytical process because nobody's asking, like people who give these histories of Earth, is like, where are they getting their evidence to even begin to support their concept of this history of Earth that they're feeding people? There's no evidence behind that.
Right.
And people are just like I just, but if you ever watch them on any of these interviews, nobody ever gives a hard hitting. They never ask these people questions. Every single show you watch, when somebody comes on, nobody ever asks, well, where did you get that information? Oh, well, my star family told me. It's like, oh, they're like, well, that's not evidence. That's a personal anecdote. It's so
Right.
they should come across saying, look, all right, I had an experience, and this is what the experience entailed. But they don't. They come on saying, "Oh, I'm a guru now because I talk to, Andromedans. I'm a guru, and here's all my guru stuff. I'm going to feed you this shit." It's like that's not for you're force feeding me bullshit from an experience that you had. That's not saying your experience wasn't real, but we have no evidence because there's nobody there with you that that experience was real. So your answer should be that, "Hey, I had an experience. I believe it was very real. They told me this, take it with a grain of salt." It's yeah, but they don't. And that's what drives me. And I say that repeatedly. Don't believe anything. Only believe what you feel is right in your own mind about your own experiences. You don't need other people's experience to confirm or deny what you've had as an experience. And I don't force feed or tell anybody anything. But the weird thing is, this just occurred to me today. So, like you, and I've spent a lot of time going back over my history and dissecting my contact experiences, fully. I'm like, is this real? Is this real? Is this real? And I compare it to other people who've had love bites. I'm like, is mine was nothing like that, and blah, blah. But I have never, in discourses with extraterrestrials, some probably real, some probably not, or some regressive, some benevolent. I have never had any of these beings tell me about ascension, fix my personality, talk about chakras, talk, any, they have never have I ever, even when I was a child, been given any of that. So I'm kind of like that. It just
That's
seems,
that's an
yeah.
anomaly in this community when you don't get that. So
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm kind of
that's
like,
a
I never
problem.
got, yeah, any of that shit. That's like,
Yeah, and that's the when they have the lingo and I'm trying to think back the type of things. With me, it was a bit different because I do ask the critical questions. So I was constantly analyzing, but also lying to myself because, like I said, even if you question things, it
right.
got to the point where I was still going along with it. Ultimately, coming out of the whole mess and looking back at it, I realized that when I felt like I was following my intuition, I was getting deeper and deeper into the trap.
Oh,
It wasn't just that they were hijacking me. Ultimately, I found in the background, my oversoul was directing me to do this because I had to go into the deepest crevices of their rear end and get the worst BS possible
oh,
and then survive it and come out of it and be able to tell people about it. So I was like a Trojan horse.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I was the asset they regret
Right.
because
That's what I said. I mean, you went through all these experiences, and now the fruit is ripe for all of us to enjoy, basically, from someone who, because so few people have actually come out of it. Everybody's still like trapped in the program, still in the loop, still being fed disinformation, still being used as tools of the deep state.
Mhm.
And and I think a lot don't, and you've mentioned it is true. It's very difficult to separate yourself. I don't think a lot realize it.
Yeah,
So it isn't that I would never, I'm not, we're not here to attack people. We're just here to help other people to start to maybe look for tips and clues, not only maybe in their own experiences, but also if they're watching other people, to kind of say, well, you know what, this sounds like the programs. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's more folks than you, but I don't think they're coming forward or they're being suppressed.
they're not. And I've heard from these people. I've heard from a lot of people over the years. And I say a lot because my reach is so small. If you consider my reach being as small as it is, I've probably heard from several dozen people over the years that I can remember. And they all will tell me, "Thank you for saying this. I've been through this myself,
Yeah,
but I've been attacked and all of this stuff. I've been targeted. I can't say these things, but thank you for going forward and saying them and weathering the storm."
right, right.
I do that out of love for other people. Now that gets back to what you were saying. We don't want to be mean to these people because
No,
they're the first. It's like who gets it worse, the smoker or the secondhand smoke inhaler? Okay,
yeah,
they're the smoker, so they're getting it worse. Okay, they're getting the mind control directly in order to be a pawn. Problem is that the moment they start waking up is the moment that the facade comes down.
right,
So it's a beautiful face and everything's nice, and then it's a monster face, and then they start getting violently abused and punished. And this is the problem. If we were to take these people and scorn them and say you're a hole, you're bad, and you're lying to people, you're deceiving, you're mind controlled, you're crazy, and you say all of these things, and let's just say everybody turned on and we had this big backlash. These people would
oh yeah,
self-destruct. A lot of them would probably commit suicide or be
oh
killed
no,
off by these handlers. And we're doing this strictly because for one reason, because we care about other people. These people are firsthand victims of it, and everyone that listens to them is a secondhand victim, just like the smoke analogy that I used.
right,
So, and I don't mean any negativity whatsoever towards these people. I care about them, and I wish they would turn it around and get through this. And when they do, they're going to need us to help them. They're going to need, and we need to create a structure. We need to create a movement, if you will, something that, like a new awakening where we can strip away all of this propaganda and reach a point where there's a place for these people to confide and go to once they break free from this.
right,
And we have to
right,
be the contrast, and there has to be more of us. And I
yeah,
do feel that there's becoming, and I think really what's helped this is this war. this has been like the straw that broke the camel's back for some people who just sat here like you and I have for a while, and you know, because I mean, I came and I tried to expose this, and I realized there was much pushback. I was called a spiritual narcissist and a know-it-all. I was blackballed off of a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right.
Nobody wanted to talk to me, and you know, I'm thinking, you know, I've been through this. I'm being honest. I'm not hiding anything. You know, I mean, I've cried on camera. I don't see these other people doing that. I don't see the emotion associated.
That's the one thing and this is one thing a lot of my people who happen to stumble upon this channel, I don't like to call them followers, friends and colleagues. They're colleagues. Because we're all working together here. But they're like, yeah, it's so weird because everybody is going through a lot of stress. Like, and our lives are roller coasters of emotions. And most of the shit that's happened to us has been like, I have PTSD, right? And it is like, but these people are always so happy. Well, I have to say Rebecca Rose as well. She's one of the few people I see come forward, talking about, absolutely horrific,
Yeah,
she has a visceral response, which is normal.
yeah.
When you're gang raped as a child and you see other children murdered in front of you, if you don't have if you're just like, but these people just sit there and they're like, yeah, this happened and that happened and they were eating kids and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, what? Eh, it's just, and people are starting to think and realize they're saying, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why or how someone can just be happy, happy, happy every single time and never address the more difficult or realistic aspects to some of these events and life stories. So it's kind of like, I have to say at this point, probably Rebecca Rose is the only person I see being authentic on camera concerning her secret space program and dark fleet experiences. Everybody else is a happy camper. I'm like, okay, you do you. But yeah, people are noticing. That's the thing. People are noticing a lot of stuff isn't adding up.
Well, there is a few other unhappy campers. I would say Arkeem Ra with the
Oh well, yeah, yeah, but
with
more. I
the-
think more mainstream type people.
well, yeah, none of us in this category are mainstream. So, but in
Right,
the mainstream, there's a best way to put this would be a disassociation from the human condition
right,
because they see
yes,
themselves in this false sense. They see
right.
themselves as this extraterrestrial in a human body as a contactee. They're speaking to their star family. They're talking to God. They're talking to angels. They're talking to spirit guides, and they're doing all. They get all this information they're getting, and another thing that needs to be brought up here is that when I was put through all of that nonsense, they were charging me up with energy and making me feel physically better, and they were making me feel energized and very positive. So there's an energy, and this is military tech, and it's ET tech given to the military, and then the military reverse engineers whatever they need to do. They get it to where it's utilized for their purposes. The ETs help because they're the ones that chaperone the whole program,
Right.
and then they get these people and they charge them up, and then they'll tell them to meditate and work with their chakras and do all of these things, and they just get so charged up with this energy. And I'll
Uh,
give you an example of how the initial contact was made with me. I had many different instances where I would hear this voice blurted out, and I'd had this a powerful emotional impact on me. Okay, and that was all induced by frequencies.
of
But
course.
eventually,
Yeah.
when they started making contact, what happened was, and I was involved in an Enki cult.
Okay.
Okay, but it had a satanic theme to it. It was satanic like psychological camouflage. It was a mixture of different occult principles and beliefs. Aleister Crowley stuff mixed with Anunnaki, mixed
Oh, right. Right.
there was aspects of excuse me, there was aspects of Gnostic Christianity mixed in with this. It was a composite belief system. But when I actually and I was pulled into it subconsciously because I felt drawn to this and I looked for it for 2 years. I had all of these psychic experiences that built up, and then I had this experience where I had an allergic reaction to singular, and I almost died. I was in the hospital for 5 days with 105 fever off and on. I was in a grace period of my insurance. So every time they broke the fever, they'd kick me to the curb, literally put me out in a wheelchair to be picked up out front of the hospital. And I'd have to come right back until they finally, and I was able to pay within the grace period. Otherwise, I would have had a huge bill. But it was 800 a month for insurance for just me. That's what it
Wow.
was to a small employer. This is before the Obamacare came and put
Yeah.
all the burden on the people in a higher income bracket and screwed them. So anyway, at the end of this experience, it was 3 weeks of telepathy, empathy, and it was empathic experiences. And one of the telltale signs that you're getting activated by handlers is when you become an empath and you cannot block the negative energy coming from other people. It just gets in you and you feel it all. That isn't normal. It doesn't work this way. These activations come from a greater part of yourself. That greater part of yourself is connected with the creator. It has your best interest because it's part of you. It's not going to open you up to all of these negative energies. And anyone who's been empathic or had these experiences knows that the most intense, most powerful energy is the negative, fear based energy and anger. That comes across much stronger than the more subtle positive stuff,
Right.
especially in society, because people keep the positive in. They're afraid of getting hurt. They're afraid of standing out. They just want to get away from the public and go back to their home and live with their life and their friends and just kind of keep it there. They're not, a lot of people aren't very outgoing, or it's temporary. It's like, hi, how are you? You're at the grocery store. How is your day? But if you tell the person, oh, they don't want to hear it. It's just they're told to say that, or they feel like they need to, or they don't need the extra information. I did that one time. I was going through really bad back surgeries and stuff and workman's comp, and I'm in a line, and the woman asked me how I was doing, and I actually told her how I was doing, and her look on her face was like, "Oh my God, I don't need to hear this." I just blurted it all out without holding the line up, just to see what would happen. So I
Right.
walked away thinking, well, I just had to test that out. I knew that it wasn't genuine, and it certainly wasn't. So that's that, you
Yeah.
know. But but anyway, what they're ultimately doing, these people, is they're disassociating them from the human condition. This is the reason, and I'm jumping around a little bit. This is the reason why when you reach out to these people, they only want to talk to you if you're paying them money.
Right.
They don't care about you.
No.
And they have this false person or false identity overlay, which takes them out of the human condition. They're just here for this mission. Okay. And, you know, that isn't a mission. When it's structured like that, and you're walling yourself off and
Yeah.
you can't be approached,
Yeah.
and um, and you're subject to negative behaviors because and cult like behaviors to where you become a cult leader. And the one of the telltale signs of this stuff, one of the easiest things to spot is when one of these influencers says, I'm the only one
Oh,
that
yeah.
has truth. I'm the only one that you need. I am the only one that gets the galactic Federation of Worlds intelligence
Right.
information. I'm it. And then they turn on other people who they before this were friends with. And then the stories just get so out of control and so out of control and so outrageous. And all of a sudden, there's a big breakup. And then you see all of the followers split up in these little divisions, and they pick sides. It's
Yeah.
like, and it's like the psychology of being a child in a parent-child relationship. When the parents break up, the child is forced to pick sides.
Yeah.
So, they're putting you in a state of a childhood or like a childish mentality of
Yes.
thinking. They're not really giving you this ascension that they talk about.
No.
And
That's yeah. Right.
real awakening, real ascension. And I know, Andrea, you don't like organized religion. I don't either. So this isn't anything to do with organized religion, but you recognize there's a creator, and that frequency is a love frequency.
Yeah.
If you're not in tune with that and you don't have love in your heart, you're self-centered, you're selfish, you're egotistical, you're narcissistic, and it's showing, and you're hiding it with a smiling facade,
Yeah.
and you've got music and everything in your background. You're sitting in a spacecraft, there's music playing, it's hypnotic. The words are all structured in such a way that it kind of puts people into a kind of a relaxed trance-like state. It opens them up to be programmed.
Right.
All of that is marketing.
Yeah, but I mean, I think
They're
you
not connecting with
you
people.
answered the question I always try to tell people. You don't need to read a book to understand what bliss and love is.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
And
sure at some point in your life when you've held a puppy or when you looked out at the leaves or you're in the by the ocean, right? There has to be some point in everybody's life, no matter how terrible your life has been, where you felt this sense of timelessness, of innocence, of peace, and of bliss. That's it. You don't need to read a book. You don't need a two-step program. You don't need to follow ETs. They don't know shit anyway. It's like it's just it's in you already. It's there. And
yeah, and
so key.
what's your opinion on these ascended masters? Because I hear this a lot. Like, what are they? The ascended masters all seem to be into self-promotion on how great they are.
Yeah.
I'm an ascended master, and it's like, but then what do they have to say? What do they have to offer? Are they there to uplift people? That's an ascended master there. That's somebody, and if you're an ascended, if you're not gonna, you're humble. You don't talk like that. You don't give
Probably
yourself.
not. Right. You're humble. Yeah.
Okay, and you don't give yourself a title like that, and you're not promoting yourself. So all this is, it really comes back to the ancient world and how people were socially engineered by negative ETs. We
Yes.
were the guys, we were the peasants, we were the followers, we were the
Right.
worshipers.
Right.
Religions are structured that. And of course, like every good psyop, 80% truth, 20% bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, look at the religious text. 80% love, 20% hate, war, destruction, vengeance, all of these
Right.
negative things. God loves you, but he's jealous. He's a
What do you
man. Of
tell us? Right.
he,
Yes.
he has a gender because this is a male-oriented culture, so God's going to be a man, and he's going to be, he's going to be jealous. There's no other gods but me. So he's going to be upset about that. And, I'm going to punish you if you don't worship me, or you go to war with that other tribe because they don't worship me. Well, this is what was happening back then
Oh,
because they were dividing people and making them fight with one another, just like
what's
today.
happening now? That is almost cookie cutter to this new age. The mainstream ET disclosure message is that these advanced, ascended ETs are waiting for humans to come together under a new world government where it's all love and peace. And once you become love and peace, we're gonna swoop in with all the technology and we can't come near you. Ooh, these ETs are very skeevy. They can't come near the humans right now until you fix yourself and clean yourself up. Meanwhile, they're up there blowing each other's ass off, scrounging over land. It's like so fucking stupid. It's like, does anyone have a brain? Does they're fucking blowing each other? It was like, it's like you don't need to fix shit. Anybody who comes up to you and tells you you need to fix yourself, can you imagine that? Can you imagine meeting somebody? And I don't understand how these people can possibly process this, right? Like, oh, I want to heal myself and become 5D so I'll be good enough to meet my ET family. It's like, if you were walking down the street, right? And you met a friend you hadn't seen in years, and that friend comes up to you and says, hey, Nathan, I'd love to hang out with you. I'm really looking forward to hanging out with you. But you know what, dude? Once you clean yourself up a little bit, then I'll hang out with you. Can you imagine? What would your reaction be? Oh, yes, I'm going to clean myself so up. You're going to be like, what an asshole.
Yeah, that's what you go through in school. I mean, we've all been through that
It's
to some degree or another. We got to want to be with the popular kids, Why can't I be with them? And
It's
why
like,
can't I get the pupils and they don't, that kind of thing.
I like it. But it's just the whole freaking narratives. People are buying this shit. And I'm like, how can you be this stupid? Oh, well, we're going to give you the honor of saving yourselves. Like, okay, that's like you see somebody drowning and you're going to be like, oh, wait, wait. I could throw you this flotation device right now, but I'm not because this is a great opportunity for you to learn how to swim. Oh, oops, Mary just drowned. Well, in her next life, that's why she incarnated this time. Mary incarnated in this life on earth because her soul wanted to learn how to swim. But she didn't. And I didn't want to interfere with that because if I threw her a flotation device, I would have been interfering with her soul's journey. And that's her soul's journey, not mine. So now Mary can come back and she can learn how to swim in the next life. This is a fucking more. I'm just sitting here listening to people. talk this. I'm like, do you have gray cells in your head? Is there any is and I'm thinking maybe they're being mind controlled while they're thinking this. That it's just I don't know. I'm out. Like I said, I'm out of all this. It makes no sense to me, and I'm not involved with any of that bullshit.
Well, your passion has definitely pushed your cold aside. You're probably going to crash after this, but because you got limited energy reserves, but they
But
want you to
anger, I find anger to be very restorative.
yeah, it does. It gets you, but there's different conditions where you can't even get that adrenaline going. I've had a few of them recently. That's a whole nother story, but anyway, they want you to blame yourself, is what you're saying, and that's exactly it. The religions are based around basically self-hatred and blaming yourself. And it's really what, we all have faults and we all need to grow and work on them. And connecting with one another, connecting with God and love, that love frequency is what's important to do that. And when I say God, I don't mean, the term is source for the New Age community.
Right.
For lack of a better word, it's God, but God is associated with worship. So the creator, in my opinion, is a better word, but it doesn't kind of fit with mainstream talk. So I use these terms.
Right.
But anyway, the religions are structured to where, you're always blaming yourself. You're never good enough. You're never, and the New Age stuff is the same way. And that's the containment gospel, as I call it. They're recycling you. And I want to throw out a term that I wish people would pick up on and use. I don't write anything as I'm not a fiction writer like a Corey Good and other people out there that'll sue you for talking about their material or using a term that they have. I call these people that are, well, not the people, but what they create, the platforms they create,
Yeah.
is virtual temple complexes.
Yes.
Because
Right.
I came out of a virtual cult. So, in other words, I got the full gamut of all of the crap. They threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at us. It
Yep.
was lights, it was everything. I mean, they literally structured this whole thing where you got hit with it all. And there was people that got treated good and people that got treated bad and really violently abused. And I'm talking about sexual assaults on the astral, being pulled out of your body, coming back when you feel like you've been beaten up.
Yeah.
Attacks. I got one attack when I was early on when I was dealing with these so-called ETs that caused me to hurt for 7 months. And I think it was my left shoulder. I had a torn rotator cuff,
Wow.
and they flared it up for 7 months and meant pain. I was on a treadmill. I was on a tread climber at a Gold's Gym,
Yeah.
and I was arguing with them in my head, and I got hit hard. I had to get off, and I limped back to the locker room. I had severe pain going down my leg. My
Wow.
shoulder was injured, and so. But another thing too, kind of reminds me of something.
Yeah.
I don't know if you see this yourself, Andrew, but you probably do. But what I saw initially is that in this cult, they were putting us into groups. So there'd be
Oh.
people, and there'd be like one spiritual warfare group versus, and had another, but they would always structure it to where they had a healer in that group. So the healer would take care of all the beatings and injuries that you'd get, and they'd be able to take off this or take out that implant, and they kept putting it in us. But the healer was the designated one that never got hit, that always took the stuff out. And I started looking at this, and after a while, it's like, wait a minute, this is a ruse. Why is this person not getting attacked and I am, and why do I have to go to them? And then I looked at some of these influencers, and they actually had a designated healer to take the parasites and the implants or whatever it is out of
Oh.
them.
Oh.
So yeah, have you seen that kind of pattern yourself? Now I know we have people who do healings and stuff like that where you got to pay them, but
Right.
but that may fit into the same category too, but on a broader sense. So what do you think? Have you seen these types of healing, like the
Oh.
healer, like people put in a group and like one's a healer and then, so forth?
Well,
Because that was a pattern.
I think it's rampant in the mainstream,
Yeah,
ET, you know.
right.
I never had the experience. I've never had experiences that you had. But what just from what I see, there's just to me it if yeah, I mean, I think money plays a big role.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think these people, I think as you yeah, I think in the programs they're called healers, right? And then they're let loose with that, and they're not like I said, they're not fakers. They really think they're healers.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they go around and they charge and they heal people. I mean, but not that there aren't shamanic healers. I think there are. I've seen people who have actually have. And that's the key thing for me. I need to see evidence of that happening. So I actually have a friend, my friend Louise. She does do healing. So she did heal a friend who had a tooth. I think she had a cavity, something wrong with her tooth anyway, right? I think she needed a root canal. I don't know some, So that she was scheduled for this, and Louise healed her. And when she went back to the dentist, it was all healed.
Yeah, that's a different situation when it
But
actually
I
has
think that's what people
symptoms.
have to ask. I think this is where, for me, this is where I tell people, you need to see evidence, documented evidence, or you need to be able to call someone. This is the weirdest thing, I think, right? Like, if you're hiring somebody to paint your house, they hand you usually a portfolio of houses they've painted and numbers of people who have agreed to be a contact, right? As a
Mhm.
reference, right? If you apply for a job, you have to give references.
Right.
These people who are running around with all this woo-woo philosophy, I'm going to heal you and upgrade you and change your DNA, they don't have any of that. And yet people are giving them all kinds of money to. So again, I don't have anything against them, but what I hope is that people start to think because they hold other members of society, like a painter
Mhm.
or a landscaper or whatever, to a higher standard than they do these woo-woo shaman.
Oh yeah, they scrutinize the painter, the
Right, right.
carpenter.
It's like,
Not with these people.
yeah, it's just weird to me. The whole thing is lacks logical analytical. I'm a very analytical person. I'm never going to change that. So this whole philosophy now is that you're supposed to feel, fuck that shit. I think it. I want to see it. I want hard evidence in front of me. And you don't have to be that way. You can run through your life feeling all you want. I don't care, but for me, I use my mind. I use the little gray cells. And it's just I just feel there you go that there's an agenda that's trying to get people to not think, to not
Oh,
read.
well, when you go for now, there's people that can do a legitimate psychic healing,
Yes,
and the skeptics to see they've added all these factors in. You have the skeptic community that's constantly refusing to look at evidence,
right,
refusing to use the so-called scientific method that they
right.
cling to as a religion. They don't even use it themselves. Professional skeptics are liars for the government. They
Yes,
never question the government. They always question the people who question the government and call them conspiracy theorists. And they debunk them using government talking points.
right,
The
right, right.
professional skeptic society is 100% guilty of this. They have no credibility at all. They're
Absolutely.
charlatans. They're the
Absolutely.
same charlatans they accuse other people of being.
Yeah.
So you've got them, and what they do is, and that's all part of the psychological attack, because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
people looking for psychic healings are going to think, I'm not going to ask for the evidence because I sound like them. I don't want to sound
Oh,
like these.
right.
Okay, so they put that out of their mind, and they just kind of go for it. And the way the environment is you don't question anything. The thing that I noticed coming into the community is you never point out somebody else doesn't sound right, that something's wrong with something somebody's saying. You never criticize. And
Right.
if you go public, you don't want to do that because then the podcast that they go on won't let you come on. And it's a cliquish thing. So they've got they're using every bad aspect of the human experience is being turned up and used to control people.
Yep.
And everything you see in the new age and the contactee community, the MyLab community, all of these attack strategies are all being employed for the most part in some form or fashion in the greater human condition.
Yeah.
So you're already conditioned to accept and not question, and then you get into this, and then it's just the
Right.
same nonsense.
Right.
Um, Now, with the healers, okay, one of the ways that you can discern whether you're getting a real healing or not, if you're being attacked and they're putting psychic blocking agents like implants in you, and then you pay somebody $200, sometimes 400 or 500, depending on these
Right.
people. I mean, they really charge a lot. They'll take something out of you, and you'll feel better for a little bit, and then and then it's like nothing ever happened, and you're right back to where you are. They never tell you, they never give you the tools that you need to keep it out because they don't have them themselves because they never needed it.
Well,
That's
I
because
think,
they're being
I,
handled to do
I,
this to
but
people.
that's bad for business.
Exactly.
I
But
mean,
there are people
if
who
I
do
fix you
it.
and then tell you how to fix yourself, that's bad for my business because I want you to come back in a month.
And that ties right back into the disassociation of the human condition and the disassociation from the pain of others. Because if they really cared about the people that they were treating, they would give them the tools to be able to stop this from happening to them, or at least they point them in the right direction. Because
Right. Yeah.
you can't just tell somebody what to do and expect them to be able to do it. It takes a long time and you've got to deprogram yourself. All of this comes down to one rule or one universal law of consent. They have to engineer the consent out of you. If you're locked into a belief system, such as the New Age belief system or some other, like, whatever it is, like
Right.
Christianity is notorious
Oh, yeah.
for taking your power away, telling you don't have any power at all to defend yourself, that you have to rely on something external to you. And it isn't the God that you feel in your heart, the love, and then all of that, because you really get in touch with this. It's an uplift. That's the real ascension. It's connecting with the Creator's energy, which is love. If you don't have that, you don't have any ascension. You're not going anywhere. You're just regressing downward. And that's what they want. So with the Christian religion, you have to just put your faith in something else.
Right.
Had a discussion today at work, and we were talking about this war and the whole situation. And the man said to me, he says, "Well, it's too late now. God is angry." And it's like, well, you know what? And I didn't get a chance because we were working, but if I had the chance to say a little bit more, I would have said, well, of course that's the case, but the punishment doesn't come from God. That's the extraterrestrial philosophy. That's the extraterrestrial programming, a vengeful God. You punish yourself because you're out of alignment. You're doing something outside of the spectrum of love. You're doing something for negative reasons. Okay. And then you're bringing all of that turmoil and chaos into your life and existence and other people. So as we go to war and we lie about why we're going to war and all of this other stuff, and we're attacking other countries unprovoked, and we're gonna feel the brunt of this. Someone's gonna suffer eventually, and either who we're attacking or us. It's always both. That isn't God acting, that's us acting, and it's us doing something to harm ourselves because we have filth, spiritual filth and
Okay.
ET filth that's hijacked this world, and it's hijacked people. And you've got attachments too. It gets deeper than just programming. You've got literal parasitic beings, many of whom, especially if you're in these programs, these things are controlled by AI. I've literally seen these blob-like beings, some with tentacles and things, and they're AI controlled because they've got a black tether that looks like rotting intestine going off into the ether, which connects to, which is what I was able to see, a mass black dark consciousness, which was AI controlled, and it was like a big dark cloud of like black smoke and energy, opaque. You couldn't see through it, with billions of little strands of rotting intestine going to every one of these disgusting things that were attached to people, and it was being AI controlled through a central computer system. And it's extraterrestrial tech. It's
Yeah.
part of the simulation. I talk about the planetary consciousness simulation. It's a soul prison. It reduces you to five senses. It gives you amnesia. It applies trauma. This is the basic mind control, trauma based mind control. And then you get programmed with false religious belief systems that disempower you, false science. They tell you that 0 point energy doesn't exist. It's all just finite resources here. We're always having an oil shortage.
Yeah.
We're always having a power shortage. We're always having a food, a water shortage. There's so many, all of these things don't work because they're not designed to work. Capitalism doesn't work. It has to have inequality in order to function. What kind of system is that? It's like, did the king design this? Yes, the kings and the queens designed the royal oligarchical trash designed these systems. They designed it to make us suffer and fight amongst ourselves while the real culprits live in castles, guarded by whatever you want to call it, gilded towers or something. it's disgusting, and we're programmed into this, but it's all an extraterrestrial top-down control system.
Oh,
And it's very, very deep in how far it goes. Go ahead.
but it's in the most people, but people are consenting to it in the smallest ways because a friend of mine is doing some job interviews now. Now he's been an engineer for, oh my God, 40 years, maybe around that. And he's going through these like hazing type interviews. And that's the thing, like even in the most simple day-to-day interactions between humans, there's this Draco-derived hierarchy. Because that doesn't have to be that way. You could just you just invite people in on a one. Why can't you be on the same level playing field as somebody else? But it's but like you think something like a job interview, it's a hazing event. You know, it's a stamina-based hazing event, and I find only if you allow. I personally don't allow it, but you know, it's just but it's just observing this, and it's mind-numbing. You know, there's no empathy for the other person. There's no congeniality. It's like the
You're a
beings,
commodity.
yeah, the beings on this planet are assholes. They lack empathy. The thing is, they don't even realize they're doing it. They
No, they
think
don't.
they think they have an authority to haze somebody else who's coming in. Is my brain is just like, what the fungal?
Yeah, we have a mode. This is kind of a surface level example of it. You know, I have a motor vehicle administration right down the road from me,
Yep.
and companies don't take their driver trainees there, and people don't like to go there to take their kids to get their driving tests, and they don't like going there for a motorcycle endorsement on their license because that MVA is like the central hub. It's got the big office building for the state, and the people, the examiners are put under pressure to be hard asses. So that goes to their head, and they intentionally fail people. I had them fail me twice on a motorcycle test. I'm
Wow.
only going to get into it, but I was abused. It's 103-degree heat. They made me move the motorcycle manually about 15 to 20 times. They made me wait from morning until 5 p.m. and I couldn't stand in the entrance to their office where there was two doors and there was air conditioning. I was standing in there because I was physically ill.
Yeah.
And the guy was calling me Scooter Man and telling me to get the hell out and wait to the end of the day and kept telling me to move the motorcycle. Sometimes it was just a couple of inches.
Oh,
And I had to
your average person is psychotic. You because I
well,
you know
I hope
I'm a
not.
historian and I've seen this throughout history.
Yeah, to some degree, yeah.
Yeah, no, but if you press them, when you look at genocides throughout history, when you look at Eastern Germany, what was happening there, the Cold War era, it's it doesn't bother people to do this. My father always told me that growing up. My father knew because he's been around, you know, he was like, people will sell you down the river for $5.
Well, yeah. Now, what do you think is going to happen with this war when the groceries run out? People don't understand something. You know, they think we're going to war. Some people do, not everyone. They don't have the historical context of the conflicts in the Middle East and where the U.S. and Israel fit into it. They don't understand geopolitics. They're not well versed in any of this stuff, and they listen to these people that are getting channeled. They're channeling voice to skull tech from a military handler network.
Yes. Yes.
And if you go back to the Iraq War, we were told, well, the New Age community was told that George W. Bush
Oh.
was going into Iraq because there was ancient artifacts, extraterrestrial stuff. It was the same Stargate nonsense and other
Right.
things.
Stargate. Yeah. Yeah.
And so George Bush is a white hat, everybody. George W. Bush, the one of the insiders on 9/11, his brother Jeb, and all that with the Project for a New American Century, all of the whole thing. Yeah, he's a white hat too because he was going over there to take ancient alien tech out of the hands of Saddam Hussein, who was keeping it and hoarding it all so the world could have access to it. Okay, so now here we are again, 20 years later after that horrible war, which killed, and we were lied about this, it killed 1 million Iraqi
Oh, yeah.
citizens.
Yeah.
we only know that there's a million citizens that died in that because those were the death certificates that were traceable.
Right.
Okay, that got through to the media, and it was independent media that reported on that. And the regular media did not because they don't care about people, they don't care about the truth. They'd rather
Right.
sell you a war. So here we are again, another war, and this one's
Right.
worse.
Right.
Iraq was not is not Iran. Iran is a very intelligent and technologically sophisticated society, despite the primitive beliefs and keeping women in hijabs and throwing gay people off roofs, things like that. That's because they've been hijacked by a reptilian oriented belief system that's very
Yep.
hardcore and warlike and
Yep.
tribal and it really, how can you love someone when you're killing them? It doesn't make any sense.
Oh no, it does though to your average person. They don't see a problem.
Right.
Everything is well, but this all goes back to the so most people have deep, deep, deep program of survival.
Yes.
It's fear-based survival. I never have enough. I'll never have enough. If you have an apple, then that means I won't have an apple. This reminds me of the song Right in Two by Tool, right? There's never people are you even see that in relationships, even with children and parents.
Oh, that's some of the worst stuff.
It,
I've seen some
yes,
bad things.
it's that it's such a service to self, but fear-based service to self. But it isn't even that they're thinking about it. It's a reaction. It's a programmed reaction. But
And people who are being abused in in these situations, like for example, there was a pro wrestler. I just seen a clip earlier on Facebook yesterday on Facebook. He said when he was an amateur wrestler, became like a NCAA champion. He won the championship. He thanked his mother for this harsh treatment. When he was a kid, not even a teenager, we're talking 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. If he lost the wrestling match, he had to walk home, and he lived in a farming community. So that's a hell of a long walk.
yeah.
And I looked at the comments specifically to see what exactly the response was. And it was almost like bots, but they were people. There's no motivation for a bot in this type of discussion. But people were like, "Oh, that's great. He's a beast." Or and it's like this reptilian oriented belief system.
100% as I tell this people over and over again, this is classic Draco reptilian society. You are
Yeah, it
living in a toned down, mind you, for now,
is.
reptilian society.
When
And
the viewing's
it's
been done, we see brutal, like the Farsight Institute. They come with a lot of baggage, but they did do a remote viewing on a specific area of Egypt. It's
oh yeah.
part of a military base right now, and all the temples and monuments are blown apart and vitrified.
Oh
And
yeah.
they it was a solar mass or solar what do they call it, coronal mass ejection event, but it wasn't. It was another group of ETs blowing up a blood festival that was happening repetitively in this one particular area of Egypt where human sacrifice, rape, dismemberment. I could just imagine Egyptians with someone's intestines doing jump rope, and blood all over the place. And, somebody saying, cut yourself for me,
Oh yeah.
and I
100%.
don't think we're that far away from it.
No, we're not. We've been there.
Yes, we came
People,
out of that.
and I think I blame schools with the way the schools teach history. So I didn't teach history the same way. I'm a historian. I used to teach history. So they'll talk about war. They'll talk about like these are people killing. There's a person killing another person,
Yeah,
and people
people
just
carrying
ignore this.
forward.
People don't rationalize the brutality of regular people because they in their own minds, this is cognitive dissonance. They're like, well, I would never do that. Yes, you fucking would. If there was a war happening, I bet you a dime to a dollar. You join the herd. I always use the dog experiment analysis analogy. It was cool. You have a pet dog, right? In his house, in your house, this dog is a dog. He's nice, domestic, everybody friendly, socialized, right? Almost every time, if that dog is out with another pack of dogs, because this happens all the time. Normal, everyday people's dogs, when they let them roam free and they join a pack of dogs, they become feral. Immediately they
Yeah,
start.
Same with cats. They become very aggressive with each other. It's a kill or be killed type of fear
They
based
go back to a natural,
interaction.
that's what you see because humans are very tribal and
Mhm.
they're very fear-based and is like, how did, it just, I try to run this by people. It's like, look, how do you think genocides happen? Well, there's a political leader. It's got nothing to do with a political leader. And I would do this with my college class. I said, okay, after class today, let's go rob somebody. Everybody's big eyes. Oh, what? I'm like,
You must have
well,
been a good teacher because you made
oh,
people
oh no, they
actually.
didn't give a shit. They just thought I was weird. Oh, you're a weirdo. Ha ha.
Oh,
My
that's
whole
why.
life, my
That's why.
whole life, I've always been the weirdo. So I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck about anything. So
Same here. People
I'm just
say I'm
trying to blast through their fucking heads.
right. And that's what makes you weird.
Right.
You're not like
Because
them.
they know. You know what it is? People, I flip the mirror on them.
Yes,
That's
you
what they
should.
don't like. I'm like, yeah, on the surface, you walk around pretending you're nice, but deep down, if the shit hits the fan, the real you comes out. And that's
Right.
why I think, and this is why I'm so concerned, because this race, the Terran, the Earthling on this planet, has in their genetic makeup that dark reptilian twist. And when shit hits the fan, they will do anything to save themselves. And that's what happens in genocidal situations, right? You have a political structure that seeds this idea, but it's your person on the street, your neighbor that kills you. People
Yeah.
need to read about Eastern Germany. People turned on their own family.
Oh,
That's
did.
makes me sick.
Nazi Germany is a perfect example of it in the modern day.
I mean, well, when they were under, it's just people will turn in their own family.
Yeah, because they're being promised comfort or reward for it. It's a reward punishment type of
Yeah,
system.
it's like what? I mean, my brain can't process that.
Mhm.
It's
It's
like,
like with communism. One of the things that they do is they get rid of religion because even though religion preaches tribalism, there's a core of it that's positive, just like all good psyops, 80% good, 20% BS. Well, if you can connect to the creator on a real level, not the superficial level of the churches and stuff like that, but a real level, like what the Gnostic Christians talk about, which, by the way, if you're looking for a religion, which I don't recommend, it isn't even really religion. It's like a religious philosophy almost. The Gnostic religion or the Gnostic Christianity is probably the closest you're going to get to something real you can grasp and use. Because it does talk about the soul traps. It talks about the archons, which are the negative ETs and other beings. But get my point here. Kind of lost my point. It's not them. I'm just running on all circuits, and I get a little overload occasionally.
actually,
Okay, so
well, one of the things I want to get back to because we're getting late.
yeah,
So we'll probably wrap it up with this one, but
I don't know
because
why I'm forgetting. My
we're gonna
brain
have you
runs
back
on
on
fumes.
anyway. Um, so the love bite situation, because I think you remember, it was last year. You talked to me. You had an experience because you know you and I, we talk a lot behind the scenes, and I always had concerns about my contacts, which I think anyone should, you know. And we talked about that, and you had an ET. Didn't you have an ET love bite experience?
Yeah, I've had actually more than one, but
Okay. Yeah.
the way it was
Well,
done
the
with
question
me
would be, I guess, for folks to understand what's the difference between a love bite versus an actual benevolent ET love relationship or contact experience.
well, a love bite, there's different types. You could have a love bite with a person where they'll do trauma bonding. So they'll do narcissistic trauma bonding. You'll be so, I mean, the emotions that come out of you, they do a variety of things. They can actually, what I found is what they like to do is, in my case, I had, I guess I'll just give you two examples, the alien love bite. And then I'm going to give you one that has to do with a person, but this was a trauma twin from the programs that they brought me together within that cult. And they told us that we were together in this relationship, and that they brought us together in this engineered lifetime experience for therapeutic purposes. So, you kind of buy into this whole thing. And then what they do is the one person won't acknowledge you. And then the other person, which is you, I'll just use myself, and the other person would acknowledge me. And then here I am having these emotions that I can't control, where I'm crying 8 and 10 times a day. It's like somebody dies every 20 or 30 minutes because
Oh,
they can't beat this person. So they amplify your emotions. And what, because you've been fractured and through applied trauma, and you have alters, the alters have the emotional attachment to each other, and they're taking aspects of their personality and they're blending it with you using a very high-tech computer system to do this that maps out your entire mind. And they can take aspects of you, of your soul that they've broken pieces of, and put them back in. It's like blending. It's like having DID at the soul level, which is dissociative identity disorder. It's really the same thing, but it's actually going to the root of the soul and fracturing it, because our souls are actually broken up across time. The real nature of the universe outside this overlay that we're in, this kind of augmented reality simulation, because we're locked into linear time. Linear time is not a natural state. Nonlinear time, presence, it's just pure presence is the natural state of things. So we can be anywhere at any time on different multiple branch timelines within nonlinear time. We can access past events, future, and the present, because it's all happening simultaneously in the mind of the creator. And we are really just aspects of the creator shining through all of us. It's having a dream, and we're part of that. And it's kind of an loop. We exist eternally, but we're alive within that energy field. So because the way of nature of nonlinear time is you can be broken up into pieces. So what they're doing is they're fracturing you, and they're creating soul fragments or soul shards. And then they can blend that back in and change your sexual orientation, your personality. They can give you these love bites. So they can take two people that were trauma bonded in a program, in another reality, another timeline, another whatever it is, another planet, in a program in a military base. You could be living in the United States, and there's another you over here in New Mexico while you're living in DC, and you are totally oblivious to it. And they're ultimately mostly oblivious to you because they're living a parallel life, but it's you having that parallel existence aspect, that
right.
experience. So your oversoul can take all of those multiple points of attention into perspective as one perspective, everything at once. It can shift and look at everything. Okay. But when you're here, you're only seeing one aspect. So they can break this off of you and you can exist different places. So that part of you is having the experience. That part of you has the emotional, connection. And then they start blending you, and then they reunite you with the person, with the original self of your trauma twin. And then they just wreak havoc on both of your lives. And the end result of that situation was the other person tried to commit suicide. And I had 5 years of post-traumatic stress disorder. I got so bad, Andrea, that I couldn't tell anybody this was going on. I had no idea what was happening, other than I thought that I was this ET having this experience and this was necessary. So it was the end. I was giving consent because the more it hurt, the more I wanted, because I thought I was getting closer and closer to my original self. And
Right.
sometimes, and often, I talked about that false personality overlay or identity overlay. Oftentimes, that can be an alter.
Yeah.
Okay. And it doesn't have to be a fictional character that they've painted a picture that you're this person or that or whatever. It can be an alter. And a lot of people fall into that trap in the MyLab community. They
Yeah.
aspire to be this more better, perfected version of their self the military created. And I
Right.
tell them, no, you need to be you. You need to be who you were before any of this happened.
Yeah.
Okay. And you'd say, well, I'm also an ET. I say, well, I'd recommend you go back further than that, because as above, so below, it's a shit show up there.
Right.
They're not they're not these spiritually advanced, perfect
No.
beings. It's a corporate orgy of filth up there. What they're doing,
Yes.
they're using us
Yes.
as cattle, and we're basically in a prison system. So don't look up to them.
No.
I don't want to be living out there. I want to be living in a reality that doesn't
Yes.
have this entropic type of experience where everything decays, everything rots, everything
Right.
dies, everything suffers. That's not, I've heard many people say, especially people who are atheists and agnostics, they will say, if the creator was real, the world wouldn't look the way it does.
Yeah,
The space would be more conducive for life. We wouldn't have supernovas. We wouldn't have black holes and what we perceive to be, the nature of a black hole could be much different than what the scientists is painting it as.
right,
But we wouldn't have this harshness in our reality where things are so bad. And everyone talks about God is here doing this and that, and it's like where? You,
right.
you don't see it because they're creating a picture in the sky for you to like look for that doesn't exist. It doesn't
Yes.
work that way. These miracles and things, I mean, sometimes things happen for positive things and are miraculous, and healings can happen. But when you look in the Bible and then you look in ancient text and other types of like what they call myth and theology,
Yeah,
you see these amazing events that take place, the parting of the Red Sea and all these other things. And
right,
when they're remote viewed and you're looked at from a common sense perspective, once you've gathered all this information, this is extraterrestrial social engineering.
right,
They're playing God with us because they're the prison wardens. That's the game. That's
right,
the way it works. They
right.
make us forget who we are, and then they play around with us. They exploit us,
Yeah,
and they always make us forget. Another thing, if the ETs are making you forget and they're taking your memories from you every time they take you, they're taking you without permission.
right.
Okay, doing these types of things to you, it's not positive.
No,
You know, and just getting back, I want to talk about before we wrap this up, I want to talk about this propaganda that support this war in the New Age community.
yeah,
They're talking about we're going to get this Stargate. Okay, now I just heard recently, just today, I heard a clip of a video that you posted on Facebook. I won't go into who it is, but the person was talking about that the Iranians were working with the deep state to hide all of the Stargate and all this stuff and everything, and they've been doing trafficking and things. This is what the United States has been doing with Israel. This is what I mean. How can people listen to this and say, well, oh, okay, so Epstein was working for Iran? I mean, how do they just swallow this? This is a jagged pill. It's covered in barbed wire and razor blades. Okay,
but
nobody should be
I,
accepting this.
it's how cults work.
Yes.
So it comes from, so people don't use reasoning. This is known by politicians. People don't use analytical, what you're saying is analytical reasoning. People don't use that. They use one, they have a problem they want solved, right? So
Mhm.
people watch something looking for an answer. And this is how you get sold shit, right? People who
Right.
watch these things are looking, they're already set up. See what I mean?
Mhm.
So people who are watching these shows aren't going in with a sense of self, with a sense of knowing, with a sense of having done the research beforehand. They're going into it looking for someone to give them, like a teacher, an answer.
An alternative explanation in a lot of cases
Yes.
too.
So whatever that person, and usually that person will come on and they're going to mansplain, let's say, and that goes for women too. They're going to have a very slick presentation loaded with pseudo history, pseudo science, pseudo academia. They're going to use big words. They're going to use complicated historical, theological connections. Well, if you look at the Bible, if you look in this book, if you get the
Oh
Quran,
yeah,
then
very
they're
cool.
going they're going to, so what they do is, this is known in academia. I used to teach research writing, thesis, and argument. They have a thesis already made. So normally what you would do in the, well, I'm not saying academia is bullshit, but I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? If it
Yeah,
was, and I would always teach my students, I said, we're going to learn how to do real research, even though it doesn't exist in the real world.
yeah, because you go to school,
Right.
research,
You have
but it's
evidence brought
filtered.
before you, then you have a thesis, right? And then you look for evidence. So what these people do is they put the cart before the horse. So they
Mm-hmm.
have a thesis, and then they cherry pick evidence in order to make their thesis sound good.
Mm-hmm. Just like religion, you cherry pick to
Right.
keep the substantial
But they'll use
of
um,
to yourself.
aspects of history so they looks like they know what they're talking about. And
Mm,
I'm not saying that they don't. These people, because just from the way they're talking, they have done a lot of reading in history.
mhm.
So they will then pull up some of this knowledge and then interweave it with other pseudoscience, pseudo blah blah, whatever, theology and current events, and then sound like someone who knows what they're talking about. And your average person just simply drinks the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and these people were very popular on Coast to Coast AM,
Yeah,
Gaia TV, a lot of the main, and of course the mainstream podcasters, that circuit.
right.
You hear a lot of, and these are the people that make a lot of money, a lot of them. They're,
Oh yeah,
and they publish books, they do videos, they have all of this stuff because they got nothing better to do. They're not dealing with the regular matrix job system here of debt. I mean, they have debt, but they're not working this type of, the regular jobs for the rest of the people. And they've got a special gift, a special mission, and all the doors open up to, for them, and it gives them a platform to pull in money from supporters
right.
and push this out. And yeah, and they do. They pull from a lot of this information. But what always happens when they run into somebody who's really an expert on something, even if it's just one specific area, their whole argument, their whole hypothesis or thesis crumbles.
I was like, that never
We call that
happens. Right.
call that
That never
complexity.
happens. They
Yeah.
never put these people in a dissertation. When you do a dissertation, you have a defense where you stand in front or sit in front of your peers
Mhm.
and they ask you questions and you defend. I've done this. You defend your thesis. None of these people ever have that. And if you ever want them, like I've asked a few to come on, and I've even had some people who know them, and you know what they do? They attack me. Oh,
Oh
you're
yeah.
you're coming out of ego. Oh, you're coming out of ego. Once you once you move from that, you'll find the source. And and I'm like, oh yeah, you're full of shit. But and let's just I mean I've actually and I did this on Facebook, so it's public. So Elena Denon talked about something on Venus where she said, "See how I found the tunnels on Venus?" I'm like fucking 2 seconds of research on Google Scholar. I go under, the research that was done way back in the 1980s. They were talking about tunnels on Venus, and I'm like, fucking you! All this bitch does, and and all these other people did. Same thing I did when I was a researcher. They're just doing research. They're doing the research and they're pulling up scientific research because nobody ever does reading of anything, doesn't, and they're
Yeah.
just pulling up old pieces of, scientific event. I mean, you can get physics information online. That's all they're doing. Like all
Yeah.
of how the UFOs fly, that's in Stefano Brescia.
Yeah.
You can find all this stuff, the blueprints, all of it. It's already there in the older texts. That's what they're pulling from. Because people don't read shit. They just want to be handed stuff from these from frauds and it's just going to be there.
Yeah, and I never really called myself a researcher until recently, even though I've done
It
research
has to
literally
be.
every day since I was age 14 on these subjects. Not just this type, UFOs, ETs, the spirituality, religions. I've studied geopolitics, politics,
Right.
astrotheology. I've looked into all of it. So I've done more research than most people who call themselves researchers have actually done. And there's people that just come out of nowhere and call themselves a researcher, and they wind up on a television show giving advice and giving and talking about subjects. And I watch it, and I say to myself, "You're wrong," or we already knew that. So who are you to tell us with something we've known for decades?
Yeah.
And and another thing too, like you were pointing out, like you can come out with a good bullshit story, and
Yeah.
then one little piece of it gets validated, and then all of a sudden your entire story is completely true. In the atheist community, they were pointing out that there was no historical proof that Nazareth, the town, existed. And I think it was, and I could be wrong on the name, but I think it was Nazareth. and they say their argument was Nazareth is now something of a modern day place. And they were kind of selling it. It's like a place where you could buy religious knickknacks, and it's kind of like a tourist place or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't trust the atheist community either. But but it's basically the Christians who don't do their research would say, okay, well, Nazareth exists, so therefore the entire Bible is true and everything in it is absolute fact. You're just you can't look at something like that and just say that. It's not critical thinking. It's not the scientific methods they so-called stick to, because they always cling to their credentialism, which is another thing. Even in this crazy community, there's credentialism. You put doctor in front of your or behind your name, or you call yourself a researcher or
That's so
whatever.
stupid.
Yeah, and if you're a doctor in one thing, but it has nothing to do with what you're
Yes.
presenting, point. you know, it
Oh,
just means you've done the work and you have
people try to
some
do that with me, and they're always like, "Oh, Dr. Martin, Doctor." I'm like, that's good. I'm a historian. That's got nothing to do with my contact experience. I'm not in knowing. I don't know anything about I don't, that. Me having a PhD in history has nothing to do with disclosure.
yeah. And this goes
And-
back to the programming, because if you look at it, when you say, and I've been through this, you've been through it, and especially with this pandemic, you point out facts to people, right? And you're like, here's the documented research right here. Here's the research study.
oh,
All of the mRNA shots, they failed the animal test. That's why they were never used, because the technology is not where it needs to be safely implemented.
yeah,
Okay. And it may never be. It may be the wrong technology, maybe the wrong direction.
right.
Okay. But the first thing out of their mouth, you're not a doctor. You're not a scientist. Okay, well, what's the definition of that? Somebody who's went to a university, went deep into debt, depending on what country you live in. Here, we go into deep debts. The Rockefeller, they created the education system with the intent of getting you in debt. So you're in debt to the bankers who gave you the loan to get the college degree, so you can have your credentialism, and now you got to work your ass off to pay it off. So you become a debt slave, and so you've traded your freedom for knowledge, and then in return you get debt, which keeps you basically in change. Like a doctor has a massive financial aid
Oh,
bill
that is
in this country. And if you live in Canada, you may get it for free, but then you just leave them and come here and go work and make a lot more money. So they don't have enough doctors, and it's sick. But this whole credentialism thing, it keeps people from educating their self,
yeah.
from using free thought and critical thinking skills, analytical skills. It's because that's for somebody else, and I can't do it until I've paid my dues and I've went to the university and they've told me what I need to think, and I just regurgitate what they teach me, and then I can parade myself around with my 4.0 and tell everybody how great I am. Okay, but
It's that's what they want. See, because in order to create a slave
uniform.
culture, you can't have
Yeah,
people with any kind of sense of self-worth or self-esteem where they look at themselves and say, "Hey, I have the capacity to reason and figure something out." Your average person just runs looking for somebody to tell them what to do.
yeah. I've had to
Oh,
live my life.
it's if so, like what you were just saying. I mean, if you're handing somebody a research document, all they should do is say thank you and read it.
Yeah, exactly. Make
You
them make
aren't
their own.
claiming anything. You're just saying, hey, I did a little bit. That's how research works. Somebody does the research, they find some, evidence thing, whatever that is, and then you share that.
Yeah,
But nobody
we do.
wants to do, nobody wants to think. And
Yeah. And here's one you can throw at people. Imagine a world without money. They can't.
no, they
They
go crazy.
cannot do that. And they will get angry at you when you try to push them to do it. And they'll say, I had an argument with a friend. He's becoming less of a friend over time because I'm changing. I'm not the person I used to be.
Oh,
We have less in common. I've grown, he hasn't. He's regressed. And the argument was they were going to cut, I think it was Chicago. There was all of these people that couldn't pay their water bill. And the
oh,
city was going to turn off like 100,000 households and apartments, cut their water off because they couldn't afford it. I don't know if it's Chicago, but I think it was. And the
wow.
UN literally had to come in and say, you can't do this. At least the UN, as evil as they are, at least they had enough heart to say, we can't have this. And, it's just, and his argument was, and I said, and I'm almost ready to say his name, but I won't. But I said, look, we'll call him Fred. like Fred, the money system is made up. I said the water belongs to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, well, the debt's real, and if they don't pay their bill, they're going to die. Let them die of some kind of water or some sanitation-based disease. Let them die of malaria in the middle of Chicago. Hell with them. And he's the same guy that said he doesn't want to pay for insurance because it goes into a pool, and when he's not using his money, it's paying for somebody else. Well, they're paying for you. I know the system's broke, but if you're going to think, I mean, you're literally going to say, okay, this little baby that needs this life-saving surgery, fuck them. That's my money. Let them die.
No, you're at, but that's the way people
Fred's
think.
a Christian.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah, he's
Christian.
a but it's and this is the thing. This is what would happen. Everybody wants, oh, the Earth's gonna move into like the ET societies. Oh, here we go. Okay, you think the Earth's gonna be like Venus? You know what people are gonna do? They're gonna be like, huh, Joe. I saw Joe go to the I don't know greenhouse. And he was only there for 3 hours, but yesterday I went to the greenhouse and I was there for 3.5 hours. Every humans are out there analyzing like, oh, I think you got something more than me. You're never going
But
to be able to. You can't. They want this benevolent, um, I know, sustainable society without money, where everyone exists in this ecosystem together, where we run our society based upon a barter system and just a sense of humility and an understanding that we are all playing a role to keep our society sustainable, right? They want that. Oh, I want that. You can't handle that because
no,
all you're going to be doing is looking at, oh, that person's doing that, I'm doing this, and oh, that, it's all based on ego and pettiness and judgment and looking at what everybody else is doing, and oh, I don't understand the beings on this planet, how they can be so just bitter and just hateful. I don't, it's just,
yeah, and it isn't just so. I used to. This is what I forgot to talk about earlier. I was struggling with this for a while.
yeah.
I recognized that humanity can't govern itself, and then I had to
Yeah.
recognize why. One of the first things that appeared to me wasn't just the negative influence, because at that point I was told there wasn't any negative ETs. See, that's the other lie. I was fed
Oh,
that
yeah,
one.
right. No, I get, yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I was told that people's psychic abilities were taken away from them for spiritual growth purposes. So it was more of a narrowed reality, and that
Okay.
they had to work with that framework, and it was
Right,
more
right,
of
right,
more of a challenge to be a better person or whatever. All this BS. So, I started looking at it like this. I'm thinking, okay, well, the lack of telepathy, the lack of the connectedness between your mind and your souls
right.
is definitely fueling this indifference. And it is. But then when you look at the ETs and you see how bad they are, and then you say,
Yeah.
well, they've got telepathy. Okay, it really comes down to a lack of alignment with the creator ultimately,
Right.
because that energy is love. It's not the garbage. It's not the hate, the negativity, the reptilian mind, and everything
Right.
else. The polar opposite of it. It really comes down to that, not the telepathy issue. Now it makes it work because it's meant to work that way. We're not meant to have separate minds like this. We're
Right.
meant to have privacy, or we can, get out. I don't want to talk, but and you can't push your way into me. I can push you back out, but we can sense one another's intentions.
Yes. Yes.
We can read their being. We can sense their energy. We know what they're capable of. Okay, people can't do this. They rely on body language,
Yeah.
past behaviors, how they carry themselves in the very moment. Like first impressions are everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're not. They're not, because that first impression could just be a facade. So
Right.
you got to. It's all most people have to go on. But later on, how many times have they found out that the person that gave the best impression was the worst person they ever met?
Of course.
And a narcissist is skilled at doing that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, that's they say now that there've been studies that most of our society is now narcissistic because that's been bred into people.
And it's a trauma based. It's a response
Trauma-based.
from trauma.
Yep. Yeah.
It's just like borderline personality disorder. I used to call it borderline psychosis because you're literally deluded. I have a neighbor, and he's always thinking somebody's conspiring against him.
Uh,
When somebody gets a like a new car, or they get new siding on their house, or new windows, or they get an addition built, he's hating on them. Like, what does that person do for a living? How come they make more than me?
yeah.
And he's always miserable.
Yeah.
He's always miserable in his relationships. His employment doesn't last. He's
Yeah.
constantly bumping around from company to company. I mean, he'll stay for a while, but there's always a conflict that happens.
Right.
Like, you can work all your life, and how many people get in a fist fight? Not many. Most people, in case people can hold it together, but some people can't. And these people have no self-awareness. They're always blaming somebody else,
Yeah.
and they're always miserable. They're suffering. If this is whatever's
Oh,
been, usually people have been
yeah.
abused. God,
That's all. That's what they want. They want people to be living in this constant loop of fear,
misery.
drama, distrust, and it because it's almost impossible because if you offer love and trust, are you going to get it back? No.
Yeah, I used to have a saying, and it still kind of goes to. It's still today. It's still relevant more than ever today. You never, and this is when I was young, so it's a little bit profane. I would say you never know who your friends are until they fuck you over.
Right.
Okay. And that was a lesson that I learned in my early teen years because I realized that people used one another. And I always wondered, you know, why does this person have so many friends when all I get is used? And it's because I'm a giving, caring person. I actually care about someone. So, I mean, I'll give you an example. Back then, a lot of us, after we had paper routes and stuff, a lot of people sold weed. Teenagers would sell a little bit of weed.
Right.
They'd buy a bag of weed, they divide it up, make a few bucks, and go to the movies or something like that. I did that for a little bit. I actually paid for my braces, unfortunately, because of the dysfunction I was dealing with. And so yeah, for people wondering, I was a felon at before I was 18. So, but now it's okay, at least in most cases. So, but anyway, I got used by a lot of people back then, and people would use me, and I realized I didn't really have any friends because it was just customers. It was just people that wanted something from me, and then there'd be other people that had all these friends. But then, like I'd be kind of envious, like why can't I just have like this circle of friends and we all have a good time? And then when you really look into it, they're not really friends. These are people who are, people that sit around and do cocaine together, people that sit around and drink. But outside of that, what else is bringing them together? There's no depth. There's nothing there.
Oh, yeah,
And
right.
and another thing I struggled with too is I thought, how do you meet someone who's really good? How do you meet a soulmate? I was looking for a soulmate. That doesn't exist in this world. I was looking for that special connection with people, like a partner in life. And this is when I was younger.
Right.
And as I was growing up, I always wondered, like, why aren't we telepathic so that we can read each other and make that real connection without having to go through all of this mating ritual garbage? And back then, you had to go to a singles bar, or it was like, where do I meet people? Somebody's like, well, meet them in church. Like, how are you going to meet anybody in church? You're not allowed to talk. They're just singing and talking, and preachers going like, where's when am I going to meet him at the bake sale? And everybody's comparing clothing and all that, and it's like, how's that going to work? Oh, you got to go to the after part, the after stuff, whatever. It never appealed. The bar scene was disgusting. I mean, that was the pits. And then I noticed that all of the TV shows promoted that, like go to the singles bar, and it was like we were being conditioned to
Yeah,
drink alcohol.
all conditioning.
We were
Yeah.
being conditioned, and then of course there's all these prohibited substances that turned out some of them actually were better and safer than the ones that were legal. Alcohol is nasty. It's great for
Oh my
disinfection.
God. Yeah.
It's perfect, great for cleaning, disinfecting, all of that. It has its purpose there. It can be used to cook with. But if you sit around and you do it every day, you're destroying your liver, you're destroying your brain, and you're destroying your life and ruining other people's lives.
Yeah.
I've seen people go down and they've got attachments. I have a person in my family that's struggling with addiction and has for a long time. I went through a period where my oversoul, people wonder, they're like, you'll start, and it seems like there's a lot of us go through this. We'll go through a phase where we'll start seeing attachments on people. It's part of the real awakening process,
Yeah.
not the false one, not the bullshit one. And you start seeing these things attached to people, and then you start identifying what it's doing to the person. And then you can associate that with their behavior and how they carry themselves and treat others. You realize this person's being hijacked, they're suffering, and then they're doing things to other people that they wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
These are people that, think like us, but are having these problems. And if you've ever pointed it out to them, they blow up and block you on Facebook, or they get away from you immediately. But I've seen something, and I started seeing this one particular it was a backpack size attachment. It had like three
Wow.
tentacles on both sides digging into somebody's lumbar back area and upper back thoracic area, like a backpack of tentacles. And it was creating a psionic distortion field, is what I call it. It was a bubble, a hazy bubble around them, and it was distorting their perceptions of other people, where
Wow.
they were constantly worrying that someone's out to get them, and they didn't trust people that they should be able to trust, that truly legitimately cared for their well-being. They couldn't see that. They just saw, and I just like, wow. And I saw that. And another one that I saw, which was crazy, I called it a thought form vector attachment, and what
Oh,
it was is that there, it was like the full disclosure now conference would come around. There's not really going to be one this year. There's going to be one next year, but the last two, the guy that puts this on has taken so much shit for just doing this and trying to bring people together. And they were putting people like us, in the programs, things like that. They were putting these attachments on them to
oh,
where, and then feeding nonsense into their head, this paranoia, this person's bad, that person's bad, and all this and all that. And then they would seek people out to try to taint their belief against someone. Okay.
yeah.
I literally sat there and talked to this girl who was telling me, oh, the director's a narcissist, right? And I'm like, I don't see that, but maybe, I don't know him that well, and then that was the first year I didn't go, but the second year I went, and we had made amends. We had a difference, there was argument stuff, and so I'm not going to get into all that, but we became friends, and then this woman is telling me again. So here I am. It's like deja vu. I'm right back in the same situation, and she's telling me how bad he is, right? And I'm like, I'm not fucking seeing this. I'm seeing all of these distortions and things that are causing it. At the same time she was speaking to me, there was literally thought form energy coming up her back from the implant over her head, and was getting into my head and forming like a hat, like a helmet around my head. And it was trying to get in. And I was like, and it caught me for a moment. I was like, I
Wow.
reflected back from last year. It's like, here we are again. And then I just started getting kind of a disorientation effect, like it was trying to force these thoughts into my head and make them solidify in me. And then I instantly, at an instinctual level from the oversoul, realized what I had to do. I had to pull God or the creator's energy in, and it just went poof, it was gone. Then I told her, I said, you've got an attachment. I told her what happened. Instantly, she blocked me.
Oh, right.
It
Well,
wasn't even in
it's
Discord.
well, yeah, the attachment, the handlers make sure that happens because they don't want, obviously to be outed. They want to maintain whatever kind of tools they have.
They don't want their asset to get any help.
Well, obvious, of course, yeah, yeah,
And these are people that wouldn't normally do this to one
yeah,
another. I mean, of course, everyone's
right.
got flaws and
Not
character
who they
flaws, but
are.
not to that level,
Yeah.
and not repetitively like this, not in an organized manner to bring down something that people are trying to do. I mean, the people that put on that conference were trying to do something positive. I think all of the people that put on these conferences are trying to do something positive, but because of all of this spiritual AI baggage, military handler baggage that they're dealing with,
Yep.
it turns into a shit show. It turns into a pageant of credentialism, cliques,
Yep.
and cult leaderships and cult belief systems. I mean, Alina Denon, you brought her up. I watched a guy that had never been to any of her events before, and he was just like a deer in the headlights type of person. He had no, I don't remember who he was, but I caught a video that he did, and he was like, this is, and he was standing outside the hotel. Somebody was filming him, and he was given like a news report, like, this is my report from the conference, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he said Alex Collier went on. He says he was one of the best speakers I've ever heard. He was very eloquent, very knowledgeable, had a good demeanor to him, and all that. And then all of a sudden, this woman came on, and he didn't know who Elena was, but she literally had, I think, a red carpet and rose petals or something. She had this like pageantry type thing, and she was just an entrance coming out like the Queen of Space is here and gets up there, and he was kind of taken aback by it, but didn't want to really critique it in the way it deserved to be critiqued because of the external pressure.
Right, right, right.
Okay. And that's something that is pure ego. Okay. And I said this on Facebook recently. I said, you can't unconditionally love others when you have ego.
That's right.
Doesn't work. It's water and electricity. They don't mix. You can't have both of them. It's either yourself and all about you, or it's really all about each other and everyone. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's the problem we got here. And this whole, like I've said before, this whole system simply is every every level of this simulation, every level of this society, this global civilization from country to country, it's designed to make you bitter, negative, fearful,
It's
to
the,
keep
right.
you in to keep you
It's
in this
not the
mindset.
person. Right. It's not the person, it's the system.
And when I did the conference presentation this past year at the Full Disclosure Now conference, my presentation got deleted before I went on stage.
Oh my
Right? I'm probably the only person in any
God.
conference that's happened to, and I think, and I've never heard of it. Have you heard of anybody going through that and
That's
having to live and go from memory and trying to pull pictures out of a file and try to talk without a present? When you're geared to a presentation, what do you do at the last minute with 4 hours of sleep? I
yeah.
didn't have jet lag, but I didn't have enough sleep, and I was just like pushing myself to socialize all night. I stayed up to one
Yeah.
thirty in the morning. I
Wow.
got up at like 6 or 7. I tweaked my presentation to where I wanted it to because I was like under attack the whole time leading up to it.
Yes. Yes. It was crazy. Yeah.
It was difficult, and then my mom, I'm like, it was supposed to be our bonding thing. It
Yeah,
was like I want you to see the other side of this thing that I'm dealing with to see that there's some legitimacy to it, and we're not all crazy. And so we get there, and she accidentally, well, she's doing some editing for me while I was in the shower, and she didn't have her laptop on save. So everything that I had done that morning was reduced to what I started with, which was barely anything I couldn't use. I had an unusable presentation
yes.
because I
Yeah.
did all the
Oh,
work that morning, and I had a good one going in. It was a lot about what we're talking about here: engineering consent, the
engineering can.
simulation, the suppression of psychic abilities, to the genetic suppression. I
Yep.
had a decent one, and I I was just, here I am, and I realized what my role was, and it was basically the handlers wanted to sabotage me because
Yep.
I'm not well known because of the suppression, so I'm on the smaller stage.
Right.
The people who are doing the channeling were on the bigger stage. They were channeling Valiant Thor and
Oh,
somebody else.
yeah. Of course they
And then
were.
there's different people present, presenting different things, and they all did a good job. I'm not tearing them down or putting them down in any way, but I had them, in my opinion, I had the most important message because it was from the heart and it talks about these subjects. It was what people needed to hear because of these deceptions. And that's rare to go into a conference and get invited to present something like that. And, it's a firsthand experience. I wanted to talk about it, and all of this stuff. So I finally had my chance and they sabotaged it. So here I was. I had about 8 people in the room. Most were half of them were friends, and the other half were just people because they never heard of me. That's because of the suppression. They've heard of these big names that go on the big stage, but not me. And here I had no presentation, so it kind of sealed my fate to obscurity. And I'm like, these bastards. And then I get done that. I get on the airplane. I leave early, which I regret because it was money related. We left early
Yeah.
to save $500, and that was the time that I had a chance to really get to meet people. And because you're really busy at a conference, but I'd been attacked there. I got hit with directed energy like some of the other people. I was sick
Yeah.
by day 3.
No, no.
I had somebody help me. I intuitively knew that someone was going to offer me a reading to help me at the conference. I didn't know I was going to get attacked, but so when I got the offer, I didn't say no. Okay, I got to do this. I knew it was going to happen. So I went down and because my mother got a reading, and I got a reading from this lady, and she took out what they put in, and I felt better as I was getting up to leave the room. and I was fine. But as soon as I got on the plane, they zapped me and they knocked me out. And I never sleep on the plane unless I'm dead exhausted. I slept all night. I
Wow.
had 7 hours of sleep. I wasn't tired when I got on there. I was just regretful that I was leaving. They knocked me completely out. I didn't even get to eat the pretzels. I remember my mother handing me the pretzels, and I felt like I was on drugs and I couldn't eat them. I'm like, I just put them in the pocket in front of me in the seat, and I was out. And I woke up a half hour before the plane landed. And then for 2 months, I was exhausted and just not feeling good. They hammered
Oh,
me.
yeah. Nope.
It, it was a suicide protocol. They wanted me to implode, and it was the people at the conference that actually brought me out of that looming depression and defeat and
Mhm.
made me feel like I still pulled it off, regardless of what they thought higher than of what I did than me because of the circumstances. And I was like, damn it, I let them. I gave the bastards an entry. I opened the door, and they came in and took advantage of it. And my mother was literally in a state like she had dementia. When I came out of the shower, she could not figure out what happened. She's like in this frantic state. I'm like, what's the matter? She's, I don't know. I don't know what I did. I'm like, where's my presentation? It was gone. I'm like, oh
Like
my God.
they influenced her. They took over her
Yeah.
body.
I told her that, but she had and she didn't dispute it, but she just didn't really want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't
Must
blame her.
have felt like really out of like what? Yeah.
Yeah, and I sat and I dedicated the conference to her and Max Spears. I talked about interviewing Max's mom,
Yeah.
and I recognized how much she really loved her son, and I pointed that out, and I used that as a kind of leading into telling that everyone that my mother was in the audience, and it was kind of the same situation, and I was thankful for that, but then I had to tell everybody my presentation's gone. I had to cut it short by a few minutes, and I just saw I saw her energy just sink in her mouth and just look on her face. So I tried my best, and I had to talk about it because I had to just kind of, there's no way you can go leave a situation like that and not bring it up for next week while you're there with these people. So every time I brought it up, I could feel her energy sink. And I kept reassuring her it's okay. It's not her fault, even though she blamed herself, but it was them that did it.
Them that used her as a tool. Yeah.
She's a college teacher. She takes nursing students into the emergency room. She teaches from that laptop. She was a teacher. Now she's working with the health department, but she was a nursing instructor, nursing professor, whatever you call it. And so, that's her laptop. It was even her PowerPoint that she uses all the time. And how in the hell did she make that mistake?
Well,
And
she
it's,
did.
yeah,
They go into you
yeah.
and go in through that way. That's how they do it. Yeah.
And that was just so, yeah, this is the way that people who like us, we talk about, we speak from the heart, we're legitimate, we try to help people, and we get suppressed.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, I think the final word here as we wrap this up is
And I go
that
die.
you
And
take
I go die.
all of it in perspective and you look at the people, when you're watching these people, do they touch your heart or does it just feel superficial?
Yeah.
Is it just more of the infotainment or do they really have something to offer? And who are they as a person? Do they show their self without fear?
Yeah.
Because the people that have the rotten crap inside them hide their self. They're fearful that people will know that they've got this in them, this darkness. And that's why, and this is the reason why these people, a lot of them will wall themselves off because they're not the ascended spiritual beings that they profess to be. They've been lied to and sold a bill of goods to be
Yes.
used as a tool.
Right.
Ultimately, I think, so if someone touches you and and this is difficult for people to discern because there's a guy out there, I forget what his name is. He speaks really slow. He's like sloth like. And his coping mechanism, and he's like the spiritual philosopher. I
So,
can't think of his name, but he says he looks very boring looking. And he speaks really slow, and he doesn't really say anything of any value. But he gets all this praise, and he's internationally known. And he's got all this money from doing this, and he does speaking tours, and they sell out. Um, and it's just he never brings up love. He never brings up the things that really matter. His advice is to sedate yourself. Emotion is not needed. Just go numb. And that's another one. That's like the sedation gospel. And you see people like that, Going numb and eliminating your emotions is not the solution. It's the exact opposite of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a response from trauma. Okay, and any psychiatrist or psychologist will tell you going numb is not the correct way to heal yourself.
No,
You're just in denial.
I've been there. That's what I lived most of my life. That was how I dealt with all the trauma, is going numb. That's because that was the only option I thought I had.
Yeah, and I went through that phase myself. And you get to the point when I was younger, I couldn't cry. It was like I had a normal childhood with normal emotions, pretty much. I mean, I was raised by what my mom didn't raise me. She had me. She was 17. She gave me up to her mother because her life was a mess, and my father was a horrible person at that time. I don't know what he was afterward. Maybe he got better, but he never had anything to do with me after they got divorced. After a year after I was born, I don't even have any memories of him. But you know, I went numb, and it wasn't even because of that. It was because of these programs.
Yeah.
Something inside me made me where I couldn't cry. But the thing that I realized about myself and going through my life is that those moments where I would get emotional and just cry out of nowhere, that was my oversoul reaching out to me.
Yeah.
And I knew instinctually, intuitive, subconsciously, that the way that I had to broaden my emotional span after it became narrow. I had to, and what I did is when I got into this, I started to gradually come out of it. But when they started to damage my body and give me really bad health problems like
Yeah.
spinal issues and things, and I suffered, and I realized, other people are suffering too. I made the decision to utilize that experience to my benefit, which was something the handlers absolutely hated, and
Oh,
they gave me shit when they finally made contact with a direct two-way communication where they had enough of pretending to be this and pretending to be that, and the mask came off. And I'm dealing with a military handler, and they threatened me, and they did all these things, and they directed energy attacks and all of this stuff. That's when it became real and it became a my lab experience. They said, "You bastard, you everything that we did to hurt and suppress you, you use it to your advantage. Everything." And I said, "Absolutely, because I'm the last one you wanted to fuck with."
yep.
And there's plenty more of me where that comes from, because I'm here as a test case. There's more of us coming. That's my purpose, to come in and deal with this and show others that it can be done and get out, and you can get yourself out of this.
Yep.
You can beat these programs, and you can get out of this reincarnation system and go back where you came from and heal yourself. And you can heal yourself here, but you got to start here.
Yep.
That's what these people don't give you. If they're not giving you the tools you need to heal yourself, and they're just putting a band-aid on it with a pseudo spiritual trash,
Right.
you're not getting what you need. You're not getting what makes you fulfilled. And that's why people just keep going back to it and floating around and going from one influencer to another, because
Yeah.
they're empty. They're not getting it, just like they do with religions. I'll try this one, I'll try that one. I'll read this book. Here's a book called The Wish. It says if I just believe it's going to happen, it'll manifest itself. Okay, I'll try that.
Right.
I'll, I'm not going to get attacked because I'm vibing high. No, you're responding to the programming, and you're being used as a tool and an influencer. That's why you're not getting attacked. But start questioning things, and you'll be a TI too.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So I think we've kind of covered most of this, and just
For
got
this,
to.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Plus, my
Yeah.
butt hurts. When my rear end starts to hurt, like I'm sitting on a bucket
But,
lid.
oh God.
I keep positioning, and I start forgetting things, and I'm spent.
I gotta really blow my nose too, so that's gonna be.
Yeah, and you're probably going to get worse. And next, you know how this works. It starts out, it's like a scratchy itch and dry, and you
Oh,
feel
this
crap.
is, yeah, I think I'm on like the down, because this I've had it since Monday, so I think we're like on the curve.
Okay, so this is like COVID light.
I gotta sneeze too, it's even worse.
Now, I'm waiting for COVID millennial edition. It just gets teenagers sick. Teenagers and people in their early 20s.
The millennial edition.
Bill Gates is involved. He had the millennial edition for Windows, since he's part of the whole genetic, the monster factory of microbes. We should go with the Windows. We could have COVID ME, COVID XP. We could have COVID Millennial Edition. I don't know what they're calling Windows now. I forget, but we'll just go with the product line. We'll sell it, and we'll market a vaccine for it. And we'll get progressively sicker.
my God. Well, that's the plan. But
Yeah, go ahead. I'll celebrate tonight. Go to McDonald's and get a Happy Meal.
I'm gonna go to bed. But yeah, all
Only
right.
2% human DNA, but hey, that's what they're admitting to. Just 2%. Somebody's fingernail fell in the masher,
Oh
but
God.
that 2%, we're just easing you into it. Because soon it's going to be 5, 10, 50. It's going to be 100%. You're just going to be eating Soylent Green and bugs.
Oh my God.
You're
Well,
going to eat bugs and you're going to eat human flesh and bugs, and you're going to like it. And you're going to own nothing, and you're going to love it.
sounds
Welcome to the world. And don't think out of line because we'll zap you from a satellite. We'll cut off your cash supply,
you're right.
which, oh, and then we got to go to crypto, which, by the way, is a means for the CIA to still have a cash source, a supposed untraceable way of conducting business for their human trafficking operations and their weapons deals and all the other garbage they do. They're going to use crypto, and then they're going to let the criminal elements and the people who are trying to get anonymity, let them use it for a fee, and of course they're going to monitor them. We've been sold so many lies, and now they're saying Epstein may have something to do with Bitcoin.
Oh, I saw
It's
that.
like, how deep does this rabbit hole go? And they're trying to say that the story goes now that was it Toshi Yakamoto or Natoshi, whatever the guy that
Oh,
had the
I saw that.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Epstein.
Eh,
Well, might as well. It may as well be. It makes sense.
oh, I guess with that, we will wrap it up for this evening. And thank you so much, Nathan, for joining us again. Looking forward to the next one, of course. And yeah, as always, we always say we will see you upstairs.
And may the farce be with you.